Hello again, and welcome back for another episode of The Sports Station, being brought to you by New York Sports Hub, where New York sports comes alive. I am Danny Graham. This is part 2 of my interview with Giants defensive legend Leonard Marshall. He had a lot to say, as you could see in that first part of the interview, talking about his Giants career, but I also wanted to ask him a couple questions about what he's doing now, and what good is he doing now that his playing days are over. And before I begin this second part, I do want to thank again Leonard Marshall's representative Angela Crockett of Angela Crockett Enterprises for helping to arrange this interview. And Angela, once again, thank you so much for letting me do this. I deeply appreciate it, and I'd like to thank you and Leonard for your professionalism too. So without any further ado, here's part 2 of my interview with Leonard Marshall. I wanted to move on now to what you're doing now. So since your playing days have ended, you have been doing a great job giving back to the game you love. You take time to travel around the country as a motivational speaker. So what kind of lessons do you like to teach, or what lessons do you like to give out when you share these kinds of speeches? And what age groups do you usually talk to? Is it more of a well-rounded bunch, or do you like to talk to younger people? What's your forte?
Well, with Brain Unity Trust, we talk to all walks of life, from kids to parents to grandparents to people in the medical field, and to those who are dealing with someone or individuals in their family that have cognitive impairment as a result of traumatic brain injury. So that's the first piece. With the Game Plan Foundation, we've helped a lot of former athletes to have surgery, to be able to see doctors, to be able to get medicine, to help them if they're in dire need and they don't have the money to pay for these medications. We've been able to fund a couple of situations like that. We're continuing to do it. When it comes to executive level speaking in corporate America, and talking about stories associated with sports and some of the things that sports enabled me to do and how sports has shaped my life. I share those stories with people, whether it's senior level executives, mid-level executives, or young junior associates just starting out. I more or less equate the speech to match their goals, their dreams, their aspirations, and where they're moving and what they're moving towards in their lives. On the front of earning money outside of public speaking, I'm about to embark upon something, fairly lucrative, but I don't want to talk about it because until the contract is signed between me and the group, I don't want to jinx it, but I've been offered an opportunity to do some things financially that I think that can take me to the level of the money I earn playing football, if not greater. I'm excited about this opportunity, and I'm hoping that we can wrap it up fairly soon. But I'm enjoying life right now.
That's good. That's good.
I really am.
And something. The reporter inside me is like, begging to ask. Hold on 1 second. It's funny.
Hold on 1 second. I'm getting a call from that CEO right now.
Yeah, go ahead. We're still recording.
I'm back.
Okay. Yeah, I was just about to say, the reporter inside of me was going to say, "Oh, come on, tell us a little bit more." But you know what? Out of respect for you, I wasn't going to pursue it any further. But I don't know, maybe that's a sign.
No, I'll just tell you this: it's a food product, and it's something that I've been pursuing now for about a month.
Uh-huh.
And the company came at me because of my leadership and my background, and it's a hell of an opportunity. That's all I'll say. And I'm excited about it. That was a phone call from the CEO of the company a minute ago. So.
Okay. So I hope that all goes well for you. But I wanted to keep talking about.
I'm praying for it.
Same here, man. Same here. So I just wanted to keep talking about what you're doing now in terms of your Brain Unity Trust and your Game Plan Foundation with bringing awareness to these long-term injuries related to head trauma, concussions, anything neurological. But I did want to ask you this, because now the NFL, they're starting to get the idea that this is happening with a lot of players in your predicament, to name a few, Jim McMahon and countless others. But the NFL in the last 10 years has been taking strides to try to prevent these kind of injuries from affecting players long term in terms of limiting the amount of contact, making head-to-head contact illegal, issuing fines, giving out personal foul penalties. So do you think that that's a step in the right direction, or do you think that that more could be done?
Any step to ensure the integrity and the prosperity of this game and protection of the athlete that's trying to play this game. Because remember, every athlete in this game is someone's child.
Exactly.
So they have a mother and father, and if not the case, they're product of someone. So someone has to care about that individual to help him have gotten to this point. It's extremely important to remember that first, that he's a human being first instead of an animal or someone that you put in a position where they can be compromised, injured, or hurt beyond repair. The saddest thing for me with this whole entire situation is that while we've been arguing for free agency has been used against us versus health insurance for a group of guys who play the most dangerous contact sport there is known to man in professional football.
Sure.
I think most of the athletes that play professional football should be afforded and offered health care for the rest of their life. Now, I'm not saying pay for their health care for their family, but I am saying take care of that player for the rest of his life, especially after he's given to the game what he's given, to not only help the game on the field, off the field, but nostalgically. I think the nostalgia piece of it and why you and I are talking is because people love success.
Mm-hmm.
And success becomes nostalgic. And when it becomes nostalgic, it's better when it's shared in a positive way. And that's what you and I are doing now.
Exactly, and it's good to have this discussion with somebody in your predicament too, because I'm sure you play with a lot of players who are now struggling with these sort of long-term injuries. I remember Outside the Lines did an interesting piece on Jim McMahon, where Jim McMahon just said flat out in the interview, he says, the second I walk out of this room after this interview is over, I'm probably going to remember 2 minutes,
Yeah, so say that again, I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, I was saying with a lot of players that you probably played with or against, there was a famous Outside the Lines interview with Jim McMahon a few years back about how he has short-term memory loss, and Jim McMahon just said flat out in the interview, he said, the second I walk out of this room after we're done with this, I'll be lucky if I remember 2 minutes of this, and it turned a lot of heads, and it was just like, wow, this is serious. I think that's when, all this came into effect, making sure that the players that are playing now aren't suffering the same fate as players in your position.
It's funny you say that, but that's exactly what it is for a lot of players.
Yeah.
I mean, it just so happened that you had a quarterback that's a Super Bowl quarterback, and the quarterback being the field general of an offense who shared that with you makes a whole hell of a lot of sense for him to make that statement and to now have somebody recognize that he's actually making that statement to them. I mean, because here's a guy who had to call football plays, read defenses, understand and be accountable to where he's at on the field and where every other player is on the field, in an offensive set. So that's a huge, huge, huge thing.
Yeah. And then you also tack on here, we just mentioned Dave Dwerson, who was a great player for the Bears and for that 1990 campaign for the Giants, and he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and it turns out that when they tested his brain, he was suffering from CTE. So there was just all these crazy stories that you wouldn't think, as great as these players are, as much as they are idolized, you never understand to the full extent that they're in that much pain. And also, this past weekend, the Football Hall of Fame enshrinement with Junior Seau, him not being there. Why wasn't he there? And it was a simple case of these injuries. And it's very saddening to see it on that type of stage.
Right. And so with that being said, that's my issue. That's my issue, and I'm glad that things are now coming to the forefront,
mm-hmm.
and that people are, they're really beginning to take notice of what happens with these players.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, I wanted to ask you, because you are a defensive lineman here, so you were making complete contact with players every single play, every single down. So when you see when you see the NFL doing these things, limiting the amount of contact, helmet to helmet, particular tackling plays that are no longer legal, like chop blocking or any of that. In hindsight, if the NFL had instituted this stuff and you were looking at the new rule sheet and you were saying, well, that's how I was taught. I've been taught how to play this way since I was, 5 years old. Would you have, to play devil's advocate here, would you have said, well, this, interrupts the flow of my game? Would you have said any of that, or what would your position on that be?
Well, if the game was the way it is now, back during my era, I would have welcomed it. I would have embraced it. I mean, I think the physicality sometimes back in my era was uncalled for. My first 3 seasons with the Giants were the toughest 3 years, I think, in the history of Giant football. I know Ray Perkins was half crazy in terms of being a football coach, and his teams practiced 3 times a day. But, Bill Parcells was cut from the Ray Perkins cloth. And Bill Parcells adopted the same mentality that Ray Perkins had, which is my teams are going to be physical, they're going to be in shape, they're going to play hard, they're going to play convincing, and they're going to play menacing football against your team. And they're going to compete so hard that they're going to out-compete your guys to the tune of next to nothing by the time it becomes a fourth quarter. So, had I been able to play under these new rules in this new era, hell, I'd play 20 years.
Yeah, so you think
it's marginal contact. It's marginal contact these days. I remember practicing like this when we went to play teams or practice against teams in training camp at other places. I mean, we would go practice against. Let's give you an example. We would go practice against, let's say, the Jets or another team somewhere else. For a couple of days to go scrimmage the Cleveland Browns, to go scrimmage the Philadelphia Eagles or whatever, just go scrimmage some other team, somewhere else. It was a third football practice. You got in position, you lined up, you did your thing, but you barely made contact, with their quarterback, their running back, their receiver, their skill position player. The lineman stepped to position and you got your fit and you knew where your fit was, and they could review it on film and they could coach up from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that standpoint. Listen, if I could have been able to do that, I'd have played 16 years like Michael Strahan, or 14 years like Michael Strahan, and had 170 sacks. But I played in a 3-4 defense, where you lined up mano a mano,
mm-hmm.
and you bashed your head 75 football plays a game, whether you liked it or not. You did the same thing during the week, except during the week you did it every practice. Let's say you practiced that way 3 days a week. So you had about, I'm just going to give an estimate, you had about 200 blows to the head during the course of a week. You had 75 blows a ball game. Then you had a cool 3,000 blows to your head in training camp, because you practiced twice a day in training camp, and it was a physical football practice. In every Bill Parcells training camp for 10 years straight. So 3,000 hits to your head for 10 years, that's 30,000 hits to your head. You think I wouldn't have any head trauma?
No, I'd be a tough critic to say, yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually fortunate that I'm not walking around with half a head.
Yeah, I totally see your point there, yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
so that's the issue.
Yeah, and then so with all these rules and regulations now, you sound like you're in full support of it. But do you also think that there should be more protective padding instituted? Do you think that there should be more things within the football helmet to protect a player's crown, protect any of that area that they should do?
Yeah, there definitely should be. There definitely should be. I mean, watch a lineman play. The linemen wear no hip pads.
Mm-hmm.
The running backs wear no hip pads because they want to play fast.
Right.
Whatever they can get, whatever advantage they can get in terms of playing fast, they're going to use that to their ability.
Okay.
So, it is what it is. But yes, extra padding in the helmet, extra air in the helmet, a better helmet than the Riddell helmet that we played in. All that stuff is taken into consideration,
mm-hmm.
and should be taken into consideration.
Absolutely, but because I've heard from numerous people that that they always say this kind of stuff, like with helmets especially.
Yeah.
If you're trying to limit this head-to-head contact, it's I don't know, but
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And are you there, Leonard?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right. So I just wanted to wrap things up here. I just want to ask you two quick questions here about some current events. So of course, so the Giants and Jason Pierre-Paul, and can you make rhyme or reason with that?
Well, not really. I really don't want to touch that one, but all I'll say is I hope it works out. I hope the young man is able to return to camp and return to play real soon. It's unfortunate, the situation that happened. It's indicative of the way these young guys think these days. They don't take in value what they call integrity in the game, as much as they should. Clear classic example is what happened yesterday with the New York Jets, Geno Smith, and a player in his locker room.
Right.
There got to be some sort of value administered for that, and players have to recognize that. To whom much is given, much is expected. When you're paid a lot of money like that, and you have a chance to do that well for your family, you should value that and value the decision that organization is making, the trust they're putting into you, the integrity they're investing into your character, and that your character will ring loud in terms of the decisions that you make, both on the field and off the field. And I think that's the piece that's really hurtful and harmful here because, the next kid that comes along, he will end up paying for this as a result of that type of behavior, whether it be in the Jets locker room or it be with the New York Giant organization.
Sure, and you had just mentioned Geno Smith, and that's what I was going to ask you next. Just to put it simply, could you imagine that happening on any team you played, or?
Well, first of all, like I just said, you wouldn't have been able to disrespect anybody in our locker room like that because we didn't have that kind of mess going on. We nip it in the bud right away. We straightened out and deal with it internally. It wouldn't have never got out. It would have never got to that point, but it would have never gotten out after that point. And I think that's stupid that something like that happens in a professional locker room.
Right. And
that's not a professional way of handling your business.
Exactly. And it was all about money. It wasn't like someone screwed up a play on the field. Anything related to football, it was $600. Sometimes you just right. Can't put two and two together when things like this happen.
Right.
So, but that's all the questions I have for you today, Leonard. I just wanted to thank you again for your elongated time, and we wish you all the best with all your future endeavors, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.